I have been hospitalized after being in a traffic accident for 4 days. My daughter Nicole visits me almost every day after school. Nicole, did you tell your dad about me? Yeah. I did. Hasn't Dad come to visit? Despite his wife being hospitalized, Thomas hasn't visited even once. This heartlessness brings a bit of sadness. 2 days later, when Nicole had no school and was visiting me. That's terrible. You were in an accident, right? Suddenly, my best friend Kelly entered the room. But I hadn't told Kelly about the accident, so I wonder how she knew. Ah, you came together. Thomas peeked his head from behind Kelly. I need to talk. Without concern for my condition, Thomas continued with his own story. I'm going to marry Kelly. So, I want a divorce. He declared loudly in the hospital room. What? What did you say? I love Kelly. We're getting married, so you should leave with Nicole. I asked again, thinking I had misheard, but I couldn't grasp what was happening all of a sudden. Kelly, what's going on here? Exactly what he said. I love Thomas. Can you let him go? Kelly looked serious. Can such an unreasonable request even be possible? Meanwhile, ignoring the zealous couple, my daughter burst into laughter. You two can't get married. Because Nicole started talking about something surprising. I, Diane Baker, spend my free time watching complex romantic dramas between work and chores. Wow, really? It ends here. Each time, I'm surprised by the drama's twists and turns, and I can't help but exclaim even though I'm watching alone. I live with my husband and our only daughter, and we get along well with my in-laws nearby. Our relationship is good, and our daily life is ordinary, far from the dramatic stories I watch. Life is so mundane that sometimes I wish I could step into a drama. My husband Thomas is a cheerful person, more skilled in sports than studies, truly a moodmaker. He's always enjoyed being lively and was always surrounded by people when he was younger. From my perspective, as someone who was quieter and focused on studies, he seemed dazzling and attractive. However, the ideas people cultivate over time aren't easily changed, as I've come to realize. Though very charming in his youth, the fact that he hasn't changed much now that he's in his 40s is somewhat problematic. What I once found endearing has become a source of worry as we've gotten older. Lately, the cause of my concerns is the relationship between Thomas and Nicole. Nicole prefers quiet time over noisy gatherings with friends. She's not into flashy dressing and, even now in high school, she excels academically, always ranking at the top. Thomas, who always disliked studying, seems unable to understand Nicole's diligent study habits. You're always holed up in your room studying, but you know, a woman can live without studying. Instead of wasting time studying, why don't you learn a charm or two to be more likable? While Nicole was focused on her studies, Thomas would deliberately say such things within earshot. Dad, not many people think like that nowadays. I can't do the job I want without studying. Whether I study or not is my choice, so let me do as I please. Despite Nicole's rebuttal, Thomas always had something to say whenever he noticed her studying. Thomas, can't you stop bothering Nicole when she's trying to study? It's great that she can study. I didn't need to study to make friends or get a job. It's more fun playing with friends, and I've never regretted it. Thomas, intoxicated with nostalgia for his fun-filled past, wouldn't listen. Nicole became increasingly frustrated with how often Thomas interfered. Mom, how long is Dad going to keep saying things like that? I can't concentrate even if I want to study. Sorry, I've told him not to talk to you while you're studying. I keep telling him how important studying is, but he won't listen. Because of this, Thomas and Nicole often clashed, and I had to mediate. But it was not enough for Thomas just to impose his views on Nicole. Listen, Nicole is trying to go to college. She doesn't need to study, being a woman. Even in front of his own parents, Thomas persisted in his view that women should be charming, and his complaints about Nicole never ceased. Stop saying because she's a woman. Nowadays, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Instead of criticizing others, how about you redo some studying? My in-laws couldn't stand seeing their beloved granddaughter criticized and admonished Thomas for his behavior. When criticized by his own parents, Thomas would sulk. What the heck, everyone's against me. After being told off by the in-laws, Thomas would grumble even more and sometimes wouldn't speak to me or Nicole for a while. Then one day, on the way back from shopping. Hey, is that you, Diane? It's been so long. Do you recognize me? Ah. Kelly. Are you living around here now? The person who called out to me was Kelly, my best friend from middle school who had moved out of our state after graduation. Kelly was always glamorous with her knowledge of makeup and nails, and I had always secretly admired her. I was the exact opposite of Kelly, who only focused on my studies and not much on appearances, yet for some reason, we clicked and spent a lot of time together. In exchange for learning fashion from her, I often helped Kelly, who struggled with her studies, especially during exams. After moving away, we kept in touch through letters for a while, but as our circles of friends grew busier, the frequency of our correspondence gradually decreased. We had become quite estranged, so it was a genuinely rare reunion. So, I got married over there and had kids, but lots of things happened, and now I'm here. I see. Sounds like you've had a tough time. Yeah. My husband cheated on me. Oh, can I come over to your house sometime? I'd love to catch up. Yes, of course. Come over. I'd love to have a long chat too. Thus, Kelly and I reconnected, and our families began interacting. Thomas, always easygoing, and Kelly, who shared a similar disposition, hit it off quickly. Every time Kelly visited, they seemed to enjoy each other's company immensely, as if they had always been friends. Kelly's daughter, about the same age as Nicole, seemed to pay as much attention to fashion as Kelly once did. Every time Kelly and her daughter visited, Nicole tried to engage them, but it seemed they weren't very compatible. She said it's impossible not to be into fashion and romance. And she called my face and clothes plain. I feel belittled by someone a bit younger than me. Nicole seemed frustrated and would vent to me after Kelly and her daughter left. Everyone's different, so they can do whatever they want. Don't worry about it, Nicole. I think you're fine just as you are. Despite my reassurances, Kelly's daughter didn't hold back and continued to pick on Nicole every time they met. After a while, Thomas and Kelly grew noticeably closer. Kelly's daughter became very fond of Thomas, and he was pleased about it too. Kelly's house has an electrical issue in one spot. I'm going to check it out next break. It must be tough living alone as a single mother. I need to help out whenever something comes up. Thomas began to frequently help out at Kelly's house, citing the difficulties of being a single mother. Kelly didn't hesitate to accept his help. Really, Thomas can do anything. He's so reliable and quick. I'll have to ask for his help with more things. Kelly praised Thomas effusively in front of me, and he clearly enjoyed the attention. As a result, Thomas started to talk about Kelly all the time, and he seemed like he couldn't stop thinking about her. Kelly's visits became less frequent, but in contrast, Thomas started to be away from home more often. Dad, haven't you been over at Kelly's place too much lately? Are you really needed that much? I don't think Kelly is completely helpless. Being a single mother is tough. I have to help out. What else would I do? Thomas's focus on Kelly's household made it seem like he neglected his own family, causing Nicole and me to grow increasingly dissatisfied. I tried to subtly discuss this with Thomas, but he didn't seem inclined to change his ways. When Thomas went to Kelly's house 3 days in a row, Nicole and I couldn't overlook it anymore. I wish you'd pay more attention to our family. Kelly is just a friend, after all. I don't understand what you're thinking, Dad. Thomas then sighed and said something unexpected. I wish Kelly and her kids were my real family instead of you. I was taken aback by his words and had no response. My love for Thomas gradually faded. After this incident, our home became thoroughly cold. Conversations between us were minimal and only when strictly necessary. Thomas and Nicole seemed even more distant than before. This was perhaps inevitable. Living without issues was perhaps the best we could hope for. With that thought, I went out for shopping. It was when I was going home on my bike that it happened. Suddenly, a loud crash and the sound of brakes filled the air. I found myself lying on the ground. There was noise all around. It took me a moment to understand the situation. My bike was thrown far, and the groceries were scattered. I had been in an accident. Soon after, pain surged through my body. I could hear the ambulance's siren in the distance. I endured the pain, waiting for the ambulance to arrive. Throughout the transport to the hospital, I was barely conscious due to the pain. Once the treatment was done and I was settled in a room, Nicole rushed to my side. Mom. Are you okay? Oh, Nicole, I'm sorry to worry you. I'll be in the hospital for a while. I had fractured my right leg in the accident. It's good you're alive. I was really worried. I hope you recover soon. I felt sorry for worrying Nicole. I couldn't remember much about the accident or the events leading up to it, but I was grateful to be alive. For now, I'd focus on healing. That was how my hospital stay began. It was the 4th day since my hospitalization. Nicole visited me almost every day after school. Yet, Thomas hadn't visited even once. I think he knows that I was in an accident and that I'm hospitalized with a broken bone. But maybe Nicole hasn't told Thomas because she doesn't want to talk to him? Nicole, did you really tell Dad about me? Yeah. I did. Hasn't Dad come to visit? No, not even once. But it's okay if you've told him. The hospital should have informed him as well. Dad could at least come visit. We barely talk at home, but since his wife is hospitalized, it would be nice if he could at least come to visit. I felt a bit sad seeing Thomas's indifference. 2 days later, when Nicole had a day off from school and was visiting, Kelly suddenly entered the room. Diane. Poor you. You were in an accident, right? Somehow, Kelly, who shouldn't have been informed, had entered the hospital room. I wondered how she knew as Thomas quietly appeared behind her. Just when I thought he had finally come to visit, he was with Kelly. He probably sees this as an opportunity to meet with Kelly whenever he wants. I didn't expect him to care, but I certainly didn't expect him to bring her along. Kelly. You came together. Thomas, who had been silent until then, spoke up. Diane, I need to talk. Without any concern for me, Thomas continued with his own agenda. I'm going to marry Kelly. So, I want a divorce. Nicole and I looked at each other, bewildered. What? What did you say? I thought I misheard, so I asked again. I love Kelly. We are getting married, so you should leave with Nicole. I couldn't understand what he was saying. It was like a scene from the dramas I always watch. Thinking it useless to argue with an excited Thomas, I turned to Kelly. Kelly, what's going on here? Exactly what he said. I love Thomas. I need him. You guys are not close anymore, are you? Can't you just let him go to me? Kelly's expression was serious. How can you say such a thing? To take my husband. A real friend wouldn't do this. You're the only one who thinks she's your friend. What do you mean? Kelly, right? After Thomas called her, Kelly started to speak. Diane, you've always been plain. We're just not a match because of that. But you were smart, so it was convenient to hang out with you. It really helped me back in school with all the examinations. It seemed Kelly had only ever seen me as a convenient tool, and I was the only one who thought of her as a best friend. Feeling superior by looking down on me, Kelly continued. Thomas and I get along well, and he seems happier with me. I think I'm more suitable for him. Kelly said this with a smirk and then whispered in my ear. And he seems to have enough money not to worry about it. Apparently, Kelly was dazzled by Thomas's salary and had pretended to be in trouble to start an affair with him. She was planning to push Nicole and me out eventually and take our place. Thomas, completely seduced, had genuinely fallen for Kelly. And now, with the timely opportunity of my hospitalization, he was trying to get a divorce while I was incapacitated. I almost sighed at their reckless actions. Such drama is happening to me. Thomas and Kelly, triumphant, faced me, waiting for me to concede. While they were caught up in their excitement, I was worried. That's when Nicole, who had been quiet until then, started to laugh. Ha! You two can't get married. Did you know, Dad? What Nicole began to reveal was surprising. Kelly is actually in the middle of divorce mediation because she cheated. And she's being asked to pay a lot in compensation, including childcare. When we met again, she had claimed her husband had cheated, but that was a complete lie. Kelly had been the one to cheat, leading to separation and now divorce mediation. During her divorce mediation, she was looking for a new economic base and found Thomas convenient. Kelly was waiting to get a guarantee that Thomas would marry her after her divorce. She also planned to control the finances after remarrying to cover the compensation to her husband and her lover's wife using Thomas's money. That's not true. I really do love Thomas. Kelly raised her voice. But Nicole continued without being perturbed. But Kelly's daughter told me everything. She talked a lot. In the end, she mocked us, saying that my mom and I would be abandoned. Nicole had sensed something about Thomas and Kelly's relationship. Predicting that it might come to this, she had been probing Kelly's daughter for any ulterior motives. Since Kelly's daughter looked down on Nicole, when told about the crisis in my marriage, she spilled the family secrets to feel superior. Thanks to this, Nicole knew about Kelly's plans and was ready to use it as a trump card when necessary. Being able to calmly gather information must be thanks to the enrichment I've always provided her. The knowledge about divorce and litigation we discussed during our drama watching sessions seemed to pay off here. Even though she's still in high school, I'm impressed by my daughter's insight and initiative. Caught with her plans exposed, Kelly frantically called her daughter. What are you blabbing about? You've ruined my plan because of your chatter. I'm broke now. Just when I found a good cash cow. Kelly started arguing with her daughter over the phone. Listening to this next to her, Thomas finally realized he had been seduced for his money. What? Stunned by the sudden turn of events, I was at a loss for words. Moreover, the reason Kelly chose Thomas was because she thought he was a wealthy president. In reality, Thomas just worked at his parents' company, but he had acted as if he was the president himself to impress Kelly. Thomas's usual cheerfulness and pretentiousness had backfired, and I could only laugh in disbelief. Now fully aware of Kelly's plans and intentions, Thomas was panicking. Sorry, Diane. Please disregard what I said earlier. What earlier words? Thomas, flustered by Nicole's calm probing, replied. I don't really want a divorce. I just said that in the heat of the moment. It was a lie. While looking down, Thomas glanced at me, silent and just listening. Diane, are you listening? Yes, I hear you loud and clear. Even though I was deceived, I couldn't forgive him for the affair with Kelly. If Thomas had been rational, this never would have happened. Nicole and I felt the same, we couldn't forgive him. As we were slow to respond, Thomas said. But you two know, without my earnings, you wouldn't be able to live, right? Divorce would be difficult. His momentary show of remorse was quickly replaced by a threat about the harsh reality of life without his income. Thomas was convinced that without him, Nicole and I couldn't survive. We can live just fine without you, Thomas. As you said, we'll get a divorce. And I'll be reporting this incident to your parents as well. No, please don't tell them. I'm begging you, please don't. Whatever you say, it doesn't change what happened. For now, I asked him to leave, and I sighed alone in my hospital room. I wondered how a drama protagonist would handle this situation. But in my heart, I already knew the answer. First, I need to heal this leg. After a few days from that tumultuous event, I was discharged from the hospital. Thanks to rehabilitation, I got quite good at using crutches. Back home, I still moved around with crutches, but my daily life was manageable and slow. Thomas continued to plead for a withdrawal of the divorce even after I returned home. But I stayed silent, and every time Nicole saw him, she blamed him. Thomas gradually found it difficult to stay at home and started living in a hotel. Then a few days after my discharge, my in-laws came to visit. Diane, you've been through a lot. Are you okay? Here, I brought some frozen meals to help a little. Saying this, my mother-in-law brought in some prepared meals, showing concern for my health. By the way, Thomas took off work yesterday. Is he not feeling well? About that, he's currently living in a hotel. Actually, I explained to my in-laws about Thomas's affair with Kelly, from their meeting to the infidelity. He met my friend and eventually fell for her. While I was hospitalized, they both came and demanded a divorce, insisting that they live in this house and that Nicole and I leave. Is that true? What is he thinking? There's more to it. I detailed how Kelly was in the middle of divorce mediation, saddled with compensation debts, and was planning to use Thomas for financial support after marrying him. Originally, Thomas pretending to be the company's president was not a good move either. He said that? He's really hopeless. But to think about abandoning Diane and Nicole, I can't forgive that. Let's talk to Thomas, honey. Yes, we need to straighten him out. Later, a meeting was arranged at my in-laws' house with Thomas and the three of us. I heard you had an affair. Thomas sat in silence, embarrassed. And you tried to kick out Diane and Nicole. What were you thinking? Abandoning your own wife and child is unthinkable. Finally, Thomas spoke. It's not like that. I was deceived. Thomas played the victim, claiming he was manipulated into divorcing. If I knew from the start it was about money, I wouldn't have done this. It's Diane's fault for reuniting with her in the first place. Thomas refused to admit his fault and made such baseless accusations. Watching this, my father-in-law's complexion darkened. What? You're saying you're not at fault? But you did have an affair. And you lied about being the president. I was thinking of letting you take over the company someday, but I can no longer trust you. You'll have to leave the company. My father-in-law expressed his anger openly and finally disowned Thomas. Thomas, you really disappointed me. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law seemed utterly dismayed by her son's actions and lack of remorse. I'm sorry. No, my decision is final. You should be apologizing to Diane, not me. Diane, I'm truly sorry. Please give me another chance. Witnessing his disownment made me feel a pang of pity. If I turned my back on him, he would be left alone. And part of me wavered. As I hesitated to respond, my mother-in-law spoke to me. Diane, don't worry about Thomas. Do what you think is best. We're on your side, you and Nicole's. Hearing those words from my mother-in-law, I made up my mind. Let's get divorced. I don't think we can go back to how things were. Please reconsider. No, I've already decided. I will make sure to get property division and child support. Why did it have to come to this? And so, we decided to get divorced. A few days later, I received a call from Kelly. Hey. My husband found out everything. Now I have to pay even more money. This is unbelievable. Kelly, who was in the middle of divorce mediation, had her affair with Thomas discovered by her husband, which resulted in increased compensation demands. Not only that, but Kelly's husband also demanded compensation for alienation of affections from Thomas. As a result, Thomas ended up losing most of his assets due to compensation and child support payments. The scandal caused by Kelly and Thomas quickly spread throughout our small community, and soon Kelly found it difficult to stay. She moved to a nearby town shortly after but struggled to support herself with her own earnings. After having relied on her husband and lovers, she now toiled in poverty, living off her own meager income. Meanwhile, Thomas started a new life alone, finding employment somewhere in a different town. Having been lenient and cutting corners because it was a family business, Thomas found that his new workplace was not so accommodating, and he continued to fail at his job. Unsuccessful in both work and personal life, Thomas turned to gambling out of stress. His addiction was severe. Despite the obligations of compensation and child support payments, he gambled away money, even going into debt to continue his habits. Sometime after the divorce, I received a call from Thomas. Sorry, I might have trouble making the payment this month. I'm running short on money, he said weakly. While I felt pity for him, I was also at a loss for words, unable to offer any help. Apparently, he had also called his parents recently. Dad, can you lend me some money, even just a little? I'm really in trouble. Unable to manage his growing debt, Thomas sought help from me and his parents. However, both his parents and I refused, leaving Thomas desperate. I hope he can find a way out of gambling and diligently work towards repaying his debts. Hoping that Thomas still had some diligence left, I occasionally heard updates about him through rumors. Nicole and I continued to receive kindness from my in-laws even after the divorce, maintaining our relationship. The in-laws might feel guilty for Thomas's failures. However, their good nature has allowed me to rely on their kindness and feel secure. Nicole continued her studies diligently and successfully passed the entrance exams for her dream university. Thanks to my income and support from the in-laws, she was able to enjoy her college life. Surrounded by the warm support from me and the in-laws, Nicole seems poised to pursue her dream of becoming a researcher.